Loneliness is something that you realize something is missing, and solitude is realizing that nothing ever really was missing. So today, that's exactly what we're going to explore. We're going to explore how we can transform loneliness into powerful, nourishing solitude, and how we can build a lifelong partnership with ourselves. And I'm going to share a little bit about my story, and we're just going to get down through it and just kind of go through of like why this is important right now. And there's an epidemic happening in America right now here too. It's like this definite loneliness, especially with men, because we have our groups. We guys have their friends and their buddies, and then things begin to change as we get older. We cultivate relationships with people, our partners, our future partners, and then that becomes our only source of social connection. We tend to drop off of these other circles, and then as life goes on, we tend to we just give our attention to that one person, maybe a few people. Then as time passes, those people die off, and then we're left alone, and we don't have our resources about us to really understand that, hey, social health plays a factor here. So it's again, going back to loneliness. Loneliness is like this lack, it's separation, it's something that's missing. And what we're wanting to do is cultivate something that's real, something that's full and full of creativity. So going back into the stats of loneliness, it's like it affects 1 in 3 men I know in particular. This is a lot where my work is with men. 1 in 3 people have reported feeling lonely, and that loneliness is a big problem. It has become an epidemic to where it is just as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, as according to the past Surgeon General. This is Vivek Murthy's book here too, called Together, where he talks about the importance of connection, and he goes through some harrowing statistics of like the effects of being so lonely causes so much stress that it is debilitating, as destructive as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And people are dealing with this at 1 out of 3, and that number's only climbing. And you would think with the advent of social media and things like this, this is promoting some sense of, togetherness. And again, that's our hope here, and this is what we're doing here. But again, we're all about this. This show is really about helping you get back to yourself, where you're never feeling lonely, you feel whole. So this is being lonely is going to trigger stress responses inside of your body. And then, of course, with those stress responses, you're going to find yourselves in unhealthy habits, whether it's coping or numbing with substances, or sexual encounters, or dangerous things out there, like maybe jumping your truck over a ravine just to tell your buddies a cool story. But hey, that's a story for another time. But you get yourself in sort of risky behaviors, when you find yourself in desperate means to kind of trying to ease the loneliness. So we're going to work on continually building emotional resilience and clarity with cultivating a solitude practice for yourself, with something I call solitude snacks. But before that, we're going to talk about kind of like what I was really going through, and I could really speak from my own experience here, and feel free to share in the comments below in your search for belonging. But after the 6th grade debacle, I was still a class clown, and really found my group of people, and I started to carve like a persona, and a character for myself, something that I took with me into college. And in college, I went to a small school in Dillon, Montana. It was Western Montana College, and I got on the football team. I walked on there, earned a scholarship, which was nice, but I really wanted to be part of a team. I was involved in a lot in team sports in high school: football, wrestling, even though that's more, individual. But I looked good in tights in my senior year, but not earlier. I'm getting off track. I was involved in a lot in team sports. I took that into college, to where did everything together as a team. I mean, you're getting together at the first thing, even before school. You're having football practice. You're having 2-a-day practices where you're everyone's sweating and bleeding together, and the locker room togetherness, and then on the field, and then back in the locker room, and then afterwards in the training room where you're icing yourself down, and then all the weird crude jokes and the weird ways guys like work on connecting with one another. And that carries on into your social life where you're doing stuff in a little bit smaller groups. But we would usually hang around, like I played on the defensive line, so I would hang around other defensive linemen, especially in my other class, and we would eat together and then hang out together. And then days where we weren't all hanging out together, we were hanging out at least in pairs. We were never alone. And then the only time you're broke away from your team is when you're looking for perhaps like a girlfriend, just put that nicely, a girlfriend. Yeah, girlfriend. Anyway, so never really alone. And that you kind of, I took that with me for a lot of years, 4 years of that into, I definitely rolled into another relationship. And then that's when I got married at a very young age, when I transferred out of Montana and lived in Pocatello for a while. So then I never really cultivated this understanding that I needed to be with myself. And then fast forward a few years later, then I got myself into it was a way different life. And I was in a situation where I was kind of this figuring out who I was at the time. I was selling cars, not really appreciating that much. I was good with sales because I was pretty good with people. And then I got out of that and somehow got myself involved with the underground electronic music scene here in Boise, back when there was a scene. And not really doing much during the daytime. It was really pretty much a nightlife that I was involved with, but we had togetherness and bonding camaraderie together, because a lot of these people that get together at these parties and those get-togethers were people that are kind of lost and finding their way and hurt and traumatized, and we got to find our way to kind of heal together. So the music brought us together. A lot of substances brought people together too. I was more into the music side of things, but I definitely dabbled. But we were all really just kind of escaping the loneliness, that feeling of loneliness, through the noise, through the beats, through dance. And that was all wonderful. That was great. It's definitely stimulating. There was definite highs in all kinds of ways, but that came with just as low lows. It was as high as, if you're on cloud nine, you're down in the seventh ring of hell, right after that. So learning to navigate that was tough. So there was a lot of alone time during those electronic music days. And it is, as like any story goes, when you're big into excess and you're big into like using and around other people, you lose other things. If you use, you lose. And you really do lose your people around you that you were solid with. You start to lose your assets because you're selling it for substances. I found myself there, living in smaller and smaller houses and living on people's couches. And then eventually the behaviors that I got myself involved left me really isolated and disconnected. And the only way I felt connection is by going out to another party. So that was kind of the downhill slide. And then as I hit kind of this rock bottom spot, this is very poignant for me. And I think it's poignant that we all hit our rock bottom.